In the city of Keizer, voters will elect three city councilor positions as well as the mayor position this November. Today on Girly Pop Politics, we talk with Councilor Marlene Parsons about expectations, responsibilities, and what it takes to be a strong city councilor. Thank you for tuning in on KMUZ's Willamette Wake Up Show. I'm your host, Jane Titchnell. Councilor Parsons, welcome to Girly Pop Politics.
Thank you.
Can you tell us how long you've been a Keizer City Councilor?
Well, I was a Keizer City Councilor from 2013 to 2021, and then I got off, and then I decided in 24 I wanted to come back on again, so I ran, and here I am for another 4-year stint.
What prompted you to run initially?
I guess I was on budget, right? And I guess I don't know if I just missed that part or if I felt like I can add something to the inexperience that was on city council. So that's kind of why I got back on for that reason. But that's not always a good reason for everybody to get on, right? You got to figure it out first.
Yes, you do. Yeah, and I want to get into that a little bit, but what would you say some attributes or past experience might be helpful for someone to have in order for them to be successful in their run as a city councilor?
I think what's important is knowing the city itself, being on a committee, right? Asking questions, just kind of being around to see what Keizer is, what Keizer does, right? I spent 12, 15 years on boards and commissions in Keizer before I even decided to run. And then I felt, silly the first couple of years, but it all comes back to you. But I think it's just really important that you have some knowledge of how the city works.
When you become a city councilor, is it expected to be a part of other committees, other associations, things like that?
Yes, as being a city councilor, every one of our boards and groups has what we call a council liaison. So a city councilor is assigned to that group, and we're there to, give reports and just to help when needed. We don't have a vote or anything like that, but I think it's great for the chair, especially to know that there's somebody there that can help them or answer a question if they need be. And then you just make a report on what is the council doing because those people, unless they watch it, they don't know, right? They know their part, their board, but not necessarily what the city does.
So, can you take us through some of the tasks of a city council member? What do some of your responsibilities look like?
Well, like I said, we're all assigned a committee, um, and or a board to sit on. We go to a lot of like ribbon cuttings to businesses. I like to go to some businesses. I like to shop local, and I want them to make sure that, hey, this is my name. Here's my card. If you ever have a question or need anything, please, here's my email. Just, jot it on down. So I think it's important as a city councilor to be out there, to go to dinners, right? To events, to big ones, little ones. It doesn't matter. Just be visible to the people. That is probably the biggest ask of the council is to be visible to the people.
So, it sounds like engaging with the community, on a regular basis is pretty important, especially I would assume to really understand like the everyday issues that folks are facing. And it's a good way to connect sort of the complex um, counsel with the everyday sort of working folks that might not always get to or pay attention to some of the things happening with city council. Government can be a bit confusing, sort of like you mentioned earlier. So you said it took you a couple of years to really like get a good grasp on, would you say like the language and the processes of what goes into this type of work?
Yes, definitely, because we go by, Robert's Rules of Orders, and so everything is very well, dictated. You're not supposed to speak out of turn. You raise your hand, Madam Mayor, City Councilor. We want to do the titles. We want to make sure that the city knows we're being professional and that we're not goofing off, right? So I think it's important for them to know. Like if you've never watched a city council meeting, turn it on and watch it. That's what I always tell people. You may not like what you hear, it may be boring, whatever, but turn it on because We do have some good information sometimes.
Can you answer the question, are city councilors paid for this work?
No, I wish I was paid. No, we're not paid. We are unpaid. Every position is unpaid. And the city manager and the city attorney work for the city council, but the rest of the staff belongs to the city manager. That's his thing. So we always ask if there is a question, you come to city council first, then we'll go to Adam, right? And we'll try to get that question answered. A lot of times we just have to be, that's the protocol that we want everyone to use.
How often does the city council meet per month?
We meet a minimum of 3 times a month. 2 times, first and third Mondays are city council meetings. The second Monday and sometimes the fourth Monday are what we call work sessions. And a work session is goal setting, working with neighborhood associations, working with contractors, for the Little League fields, um, just things like that. I mean, there's always a work session to be done.
What would you say, like, average amount of hours spent
Mm.
either per week or per month, even for example, yourself? What would that look like?
For myself, I do a minimum of probably 15 hours, and that includes phone calls, going to the businesses, going to meetings, being the liaisons. But some weeks it's only 10, right? Some weeks it's 15. I think it depends on what's going on out in the community and if I want to be a part of that.
Sounds like counselors can kind of choose which areas that they're really engaged in. For example, like the parks, right? I know you've done a lot of work with different parks in Keizer, is that right?
That's correct.
Talk to me about the decision power of the city council, both the kind of as an individual person and as a unit. I would imagine there's probably a lot of power and responsibility in those positions.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it power, but I think the seven of us all have one vote. It's equal. We all choose to not or to go to certain things, but we always like to make sure there's at least two, sometimes three counselors at these events that we do so that people know that we are engaged in the community. Um, I think we're more like a professional, I want to say, right? I mean, I don't feel like I have power over anybody. I'm equal to you. I'm equal to this person, to this person. And when I ran for city council, I said, I'm going to represent 40,000 people. Okay. So this person may have a different level of idea that I do, but I'm going to listen to what they have to say. And hey, I might like it, right? But not everyone is going to like our choice that we make. And it has to always be a majority. So if I'm a no, which sometimes I am a no, I'm in the minority usually. So, but that happens. I just want the people to know I'm voting and working for them. And sometimes we're not all on the same team on city council because we do have different opinions and maybe we have different agenda items or something like that. But I would hope that the best thing that people need to do is be a team and be a team player, because without that, you're so miscombobulated, I guess is the word, if you don't work as a team.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you're right in the sense of it's not necessarily power, but it is the ability to, make collective decisions and choices that do affect the community. I think, for example, actually, I think this would be interesting to talk about. So the
Mm.
area in Keizer that is being potentially built on with, was it like a tire center and car wash space?
Oh yeah, yeah. So you're talking about at the next to Chariots. Yes.
Right. So for an example, the city council, they're opening up, I believe there's going to be some type of discussion with the community so that they can offer their input, but ultimately it would be up to the city council to move forward with that contract. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yes. We ultimately have that decision. And we usually, the city manager will report to us. He's kind of the guy that negotiates all these things. He reports to us and he says, and then he'll say, well, but we have to change what it's zoned, right? So we can't do this and we can't do that. Well, when we were talking about putting the chicken place, right, in that real big one, we were going to put it way at the corner so it was away from all the homes, but we went to every single neighbor on those streets I walked those streets, both of them, and I had half that said they didn't care and half that said they do. They don't want anything there, but they know someday something's going to be built there, but they don't want a fast food place, some place where there's going to be stagnant cars waiting in line. I understood that. Whether I agreed with it or not doesn't matter. I understood that. They're the ones that have to live with it, not me. So the decision to disallow that in that particular area, what they did was they went across the street. So across the street where those homes are all boarded up, we own half of that property, and some guy in California, I think, owns the other half. And so the people, and it is zoned for a gas station, right? We don't have to change any zoning in that particular area. So they want to put their store and gas station there. What do you do, right? I mean, we don't have to change any zoning. And if they've done just everything that they're supposed to do, it's like we can't walk away from $5 million because we as a city, we need that $5 million. That's why we're trying to sell our land that we have available, right? So that we can start putting it on things that we owe, or street fund, or water or stormwater, bring the fees down that people are paying, something, right? So ultimately that would be the decision we probably would make, just because it would really, it may look bad for a while, but it's ultimately going to bring money into the city, and that's what we want.
Yeah, I really appreciate you actually explaining that particular situation. It's something that I've learned about myself in regards to zoning, and
Yeah.
when businesses try to contract with Keizer, the city council, can only assess the businesses who have completed all of the steps. And it is important that cities do increase revenue. And so this is one way, but your explanation is really helpful, I think, for folks to understand that situation. But again, the responsibility that city council holds. Listeners, if you're just tuning in, we're speaking with Keizer City Councilor Marlene Parsons about the pros and cons of being on city council and what kind of impact being a city councilor has on everyday residents. What are some of the pros of being on city council? What are some things that you've really enjoyed during your time?
I think I've enjoyed working with people, right? Working with people, commissioners, right? Or representatives or senators. And you're like, whoa, you think but it's great because they want to work with you too. Especially if we want something, we'll go to our senator here, or we go to our representative and we need their help. And a lot of times we'll get their help, and they'll go to the legislature and get us money, right? Or whatever they can do. I think that was really fun for me because I thought, wow, different levels of government still have the same light bulb coming on at the end, right? And so I learned that, and I like being out in the community to just meet people and kids and dogs and everything that comes running, because I'm a social person, and I may not like big crowds, but I like, you know, smaller crowds where people can get to know one another. I can explain, things on city council, but it never fails. I can't even get through the grocery store without somebody asking me something about what's going on. But I stop what I'm doing and take my time and I answer their question because it's important. If it's important for them to ask the question, then it's important enough for me to answer them. So I think that's what I really enjoyed most, was meeting those people who help us, plus the people in the community.
What are some of the challenges that maybe you faced or that you have found to be kind of common challenges that people experience when they first enter or they first, sit on a council like city council?
A lot of the challenges are, the Government Ethics Commission said you can't have a conversation with more than three counselors, and that includes you, of the same issue that might come up for a vote. So it's really difficult to talk about issues with my other city councilors to see what they feel until you get into that meeting. And that's really hard because then you're like, wait a second, but why do you think that? So now we're spending an hour and a half, right, on one topic. You know that. So I think that's the biggest challenge right there, is being able to, how do we agree without spending an hour and a half. But a lot of people look at the agendas beforehand and they either write emails, they'll call us, they'll text us, whatever, and they want their question answered, and I'm happy to answer their question. But the deepest challenge is getting, if you're voting on something that's really hot in the city, and the majority say yes, and these guys and the rest of your counselors are saying no. It's very hard. It's very hard. It's a challenge in itself. So I don't always go with the majority. If I stand my ground because that's what the people have talked to me about, I say yes. So, and then speaking, of course, in front of crowds, that's probably the biggest challenge. If this person has never really spoke in front of a body of people before, that's very intimidating, especially when that council room is full of people all wanting the same thing, right? And you're trying to like, okay, okay, and then they clap, and then they do this, and we're not supposed to do all this, and we all get confused sitting up there. And so I think the challenge is, how do you react to people and yet still strive to be working for them up at the dais without a lot of issues, right? So that's, especially for new people come on city council. To me, it's very important. They need to stop and listen. When Roland Herrera first came on city council, I knew him. He was a friend, right? We had kids together back in the day, baseball and everything. But Roland sat next to me, and I mentored him for 6 years. And I would kick him, and then he would say, "Do I need to say this?" And I'd kick him again, or say, "Yes, you can say that," right? Because it's important that he knew when to make those things so that people didn't gawk at him or something, because people do that. People can be pretty rude outside in the audience. They can be rude, and I would like them to respect me, and I want to respect them. So it's a respect thing. So if you don't like this person because he may not have your political view, or she may not, or she does, I throw politics out because I'm not a politician. I'm not a politician. I'm a city councilor. I work for the city in trying to, keep us whole, keep us, with our ordinances and up to date with all of our issues. That's what's important. And so being political has nothing to do with city council. I don't feel anyway, but some people do, and that's okay. And that's a challenge in itself, because you may not agree with that side. You may not agree with that side, but darn, you have to have a side to agree with, don't you? Because there's only two sides. So I have to pick and choose sometimes.
Do you have any past projects you're really proud of and any future projects you're really excited for?
The very first project that I was given when I got on city council the first time in 2013 was I this gentleman came in with his child and talked about this big toy, and it was in Pendleton or Hermiston, and he says, we can do it, and here's the company, and here's this, and here's that. So we voted, sure, let's do this. Huh. Okay, the notebook was probably 10 inches thick, and I was chair of that committee. So it was my responsibility to get everybody, all these different, there was a babysitting, and there was a food, and there was a volunteer in there. Everything, you name it, it was there. But, it took about 6 months to kind of fill most of the positions. But I'm telling you, Keizer came together. I didn't build that big toy. Yes, I was a big part of it. I was chair of it. But I am so proud. What I'm proud of is the people that came together. We had 1,000 volunteers that week, Jane. 10,000 man hours at least to build that big toy. And then when I got back on council, one of the things I wanted to do was it needed a little bit of upkeep. So I called on volunteers again, and 40 people showed up. I got them Oddmo's pizza, and we painted away. So I think that's probably my biggest accomplishment. I look at that as my biggest accomplishment. But I've done other things in the parks. That I'm proud of. I'm proud of, like, getting more benches in there, and getting the picnic shelters. The thing that goes over the picnic tables.
The like pavilion.
Yes, kind of like that.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
getting those, because like after we built the big toy, there was like nothing. Well, I was on the Parks Foundation because we didn't have the fee yet. We had a Parks Foundation, and we raised money to help with the parks. So when the fee went into effect in 2017, oh man, it was a long time ago. Then, as a Parks Foundation, we took all our money and gave it to the city to buy the sails so the kids could be cool on the equipment. So, like I said, Keizer shows up. You just ask one question and people are there. They drop everything in the world for that. They drop all their hatred and all their bitterness and all their this or all their that, and they come together and they show up, because that's so like the motto Keizer shows up is absolutely true. I can attest to that. Future, well, let's see. I think I think what I would like to see, and I'm really a parks person. I'm for more parks, 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 obviously. Like in my neighborhood association, we don't even have a park. We have two schools, but no parks.
Well,
We're on the north side of Chemawa. Chemawa is the cutoff. West Keizer is right across the street, right? We're here on this side, and we go to we want 55 and older. They have their own. McNary has their own, and the other people have their own. So there's a bunch of houses in there though that don't. So we represent them, and then to River Road really, and Windsor to the river.
do you have any advice or words of wisdom for folks in Kaiser thinking about running for city council?
Yes, I mean, when I went to run for city council, I made an appointment with every city councilor and talked to them because I wanted to see where they were at, what they have done, what they'd like to see done, and what role could I play in that. And one of the people who pulled the packet did. He set up an appointment with me. We met. We had coffee. It was great. And he's very excited. And he's meeting with every city councilor. I think that is so important. Whether you like that person or not, read what they have to say because there's something in there, right, that they did good or that they will still do good. You know, I mean, we don't like everybody. Like I said, no, not everybody likes Marlene. I don't expect them to. I want them to, but they won't. So that's my word of wisdom. You know, is really think hard about it because once you turn that paperwork in, it will look really bad on you if you resign before election day, right? So think about it before you put that paperwork in. Is this something that I have time to do, number one, and want to do, number two, and I feel I could make a difference, number three? So those are my things that I would tell anybody that wants to run because it's very, very important.
Counselor Marlene Parsons, thank you so much for
You're welcome.
coming on Girly Pop Politics and sharing your perspective on this.
Sure, no way. Go Keizer, go Celts.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Girly Pop Politics. If you enjoyed this episode, consider donating now to CAMUZ. CAMUZ is your commercial free, volunteer powered, and community supported media source for the Mid Willamette Valley and beyond. Whether you tune in at 88.5 or 100.7 FM, stream from camuz.org, or listen via the CAMUZ app on Apple or Android, you're part of a movement to keep local voices on the air.